All right, just a little bit of insight here for the Supreme Court decision. What we're looking at right now is some of the charges obviously going away because of this bullshit from Trump's pocket judges. Cheeto crumbs is the way I look at them. The Cheeto crumbs and the black robes. But anyway, we still are looking at charges. We're still looking at cases going forward. We're still looking at Chutkan having the opportunity, as soon as she puts out the papers, scheduling a evidentiary hearing. To schedule that hearing, she doesn't have to wait the 90 days. She can literally, I think it's 30 days. And they have to show up and essentially present an entire case. That's every witness, every document, everything in the case that would have been in front of a jury that would have led to whatever convictions for whoever. All of that evidence is brought up, and that is the evidence, and that is the case that also includes congresspeople, senators, and things like that, which will trip indictments on everything else once the evidence is out. The one thing about the J6 case that Congress, besides protecting the Cheeto von Schützenpants, is actually protecting themselves, because how many of these Congress people had their phones taken by the FBI going way back into a couple weeks after J6? How many people had their offices raided? How many laptops? How many other computers? How many times did we hear those stories? The FBI got me coming out of an Arby's. I was with my kids. How dared they? They took my cell phones. How many of those stories did we hear right after J6? That was how quickly they were on to the right people. That is how quickly they were putting the pieces together. Now, granted, he's going to try and say everything he did on J6 was in the line of his presidential duty, which is absolute bullshit. But the judge, Judge Chutkan, who is a badass judge, isn't going to play it, and she makes the decision whether or not it can be appealed and brought up, but it gives the opportunity for all of the evidence to come out before the election, which I believe is the most important part of this whole thing. So voters know the evidence. So this is a hearing, full hearing, every piece of evidence without the jury. And that's just for the purposes, according to the Supreme Court, of determining what's presidential jobs and actions and what's personal actions that are criminally chargeable. So that's how she's going to respond. Jack Smith, being the rock star of the war crimes investigator, I am pretty damn sure had backup plans for every single version of a decision the Supreme Court could bring down. So as soon as Chutkan makes her move, bam, Jack Smith's going to be right there. And that leads to a quick indictment of everyone else. So we could not only be going into this election cycle knowing all the evidence of the J6 trial that was going to be in Washington, but we also know the Republican senators, the Republican congressmen and congresswomen that were involved in different areas of this, that would have been indicted and charged in the future trial as the evidence comes out. So that moves it forward. It moves the evidence forward. May not get the conviction and everything that everyone wants to see him to get thrown in jail, but at least the information and the facts will be out. That is a big, huge, it's a big leap plus. We have to take solace in that. We have to be happy about that. It also gives Joe Biden the immunity. Just say he doesn't play that card up until the election. There's a lot of action from Russia. There's a lot of action from North Korea, from China, from Saudi Arabia. All the people who desperately want Donald Trump in the office. Joe Biden would literally have the opportunity to postpone the election, to impeach Supreme Court justices, to go after the Congress people that were involved in this stuff. Remember, Trump with immunity would send SEAL Team 6 after his enemies. He has recently actually threatened Liz Cheney, going after her, threatening her life, because she stood up to him. That is what we're looking at right here. So Joe Biden has those powers right now. He's above that. He's above utilizing the powers to punish his enemies, because he is truly working for the betterment of this country. He is truly representing the best interests of the country. But if push comes to shove, I truly believe Dark Brandon will raise his sunglasses and rip that big Cheeto mango Mussolini ass in half. I truly believe that is the last card on the deck that they will play. But if necessary, if there is a reason to question whether or not the election is influenced by other countries, that's a national security issue, which means it's presidential purview and part of the president's job to protect this country against attacks, domestic or international, which includes meddling in the election. That's a pretty good, powerful card. The good news is we're not going to need it, because Democrats down ticket will be elected in every position. You know how I know that? Because you are going to make sure that happens. You are going to make sure you and everyone you know votes, because if you don't, all this stuff we're afraid of happening will happen. The only way this can be stopped 150% beyond the shadow of the doubt in every if, and, or but, Schedule 47, Project 2025, the Republicans taking over everything, banning abortions nationwide, no exceptions, taking away, tens of thousands of federal workers and replacing them with, like, Trump Juniors and Matt Gaetz type people and Marjorie Taylor Greene type people. Those are the Steve Bannon when he gets out. Michael Flynn, the general that was treasonous to the country, that got pardoned. All his pardoned buddies have cabinet positions waiting for them. The only way to make sure none of that happens beyond the shadow of the doubt, without any funny business, without Dark Brandon raising his head and utilizing the bullshit powers that the Supreme Court just gave Donald Trump, the only way to make sure none of that happens is to vote blue all the way down. Stop freaking out about this ruling. It could be used against Trump just like Trump could use it against everyone else. Right now, Joe Biden is in power. He has that immunity right now. He's just a better person, and he doesn't need to abuse the system to get the job done. He doesn't need to go after his adversaries and target them just to beat them. He did it before, he's going to do it again. But stop getting freaked out about all these people on TV who are crying the sky is falling when it's not. The presidential immunity is the reason why Robert Mueller said in his report, you can't prosecute a sitting president. It's the same thing. It's just a little bit more directed. Same concept. Stop freaking out about it. It doesn't make him a king. It gives him a lot more opportunity to act like one. The Congress and the other people will make him a king. The Supreme Court will make him a king. But that can be stopped with the votes. So let's make sure we vote. Let's make sure everyone of voting age votes. And if you know people who aren't going to vote, take them to the polling places yourself and make them vote. And persuade them to vote on the blue side of the aisle. Because that's what's going to save all of this from happening. It is really that simple. But don't think for a minute Joe Biden doesn't have these thoughts. He's been in this game a long time. And you know who could hold the Supreme Court justices to account? Congress. A Democratic Congress. AOC is already introducing impeachment paperwork for Clarence Thomas, Alito, Kavanaugh, Barrett, all the people who voted for these horrendous decisions. It's there. It's there. We have that power. We need to make sure to make it work. So stay diligent, stay educated, be kind. We are all in this together. But the battle is not over. It's just begun. And it works against them just as much as it works for them. Remember that before you get freaked out. And sleep tight. We are going to be just fine. God bless.